Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reading from The Mystery of the Coniunctio, Alchemical Image of Individuation by Edward F. Edinger. And I will be reading about picture number 4, which is called Descent into the Bath. And keeping in mind that these 10 pictures in The Mystery of the Coniunctio in this book represent a psychological cycle that we all go through, including individually in our couples and also in society at large. So I think it's kind of fun to think about this in terms of our president and speaker of the House going through what they're going through right now. But in any case, let me offer to you the actual image that appears in Rosarium Philosophorum. And this is picture number 4. Here we have a picture of a basin filled with water, a hexagonal basin. So the sixfold nature of the star and of the arrangement of the flowers is again duplicated in the lower level of the fountain. The naked crowned king and queen are sitting in the bath waters, and again the dove is present. The encounter has gone a step further, and the two figures are now united not only by the flowers they hold, but also by the medium of the water. They have begun a state of mutual solutio. That's an alchemical term, solutio. Solutio is a major alchemical image, and it is likewise extremely important in psychology. The basic images that refer to this symbol system are such things as swimming in water, bathing, showering, maybe drowning, The basic images that refer to this symbol system are such things as swimming in water, bathing, showering, maybe drowning, dissolution, but also baptism and rejuvenation through the process, through the ordeal by water. Solutio is an image of a descent into the unconscious that has the effect of dissolving the solid, ordered structure of the ego. Solutio is an image of a descent into the unconscious that has the Solutio has an image of a descent into the unconscious that has the effect of dissolving the solid, ordered structure of the ego. For the alchemist, the solutio meant the return of differentiated matter to its original undifferentiated state, to the prima materia. Water was thought of as the womb, and to enter the water, the solutio, was to return to the womb for rebirth. For instance, in one text, the old king who submits to the solutio of drowning has this to say: "Else I, God's kingdom, cannot enter in, and therefore, that I may be born again, I'll humbled be into my mother's breast, dissolve to my first mater, and there rest." Well, the two figures are following that same recipe. Here is another alchemical recipe for solutio from the secret book of Artifice. Dissolve then Sol and Luna in our dissolving water, which is familiar and friendly, and the next in nature unto them, and as it were a womb, a mother, an original, the beginning and the end of their life. And that is the very reason why they are ameliorated or amended in this water, because like nature rejoiceth in like nature. Thus it behooves you to join consanguinely, means by blood, okay. Thus it behooves you to join consanguinity, or sameness of kind, and because Sol and Luna have their origin from this water, their mother, it is necessary, therefore, that they then enter into it again, to wit, into their mother's womb, that they may be regenerate or born again and made more healthy, more noble, and more strong. The image of the king and the queen in the bath and the dissolution of Sol and Luna in this text both refer to a chemical fact well known to the alchemists. For them, Sol and Luna, sun and moon, also refer to the metals, gold and silver. The alchemists were gripped by the idea that these two metals, representing the opposites, had somehow to be united. And how do you get them together? Well, they discovered that one way to get them together was to amalgamate them with mercury. You then get an amalgam that is a mixture, a union of gold and silver. I'll just share with you a different image now, so you might get a sense of this. So the two fountains in the bottom there are gold and silver in color. From the chemical standpoint, that is what this picture represents, gold and silver being immersed in the mercurial fountain in a bath of liquid mercury in order to be dissolved. That's a chemical image of something that actually happens in the laboratory. But of course, all the rich fantasy elaborations that the alchemists projected into it are an expression of the psychological process going on in the unconscious. Picture 4, go back to picture 4 now. Picture 4 is an image of participation mystique. You see, as the recipe tells us, gold and silver were originally born out of the mother's womb, which corresponds to the mercurial fountain. Originally, the opposites were separated and differentiated from the unconscious matrix, and now they are reversing direction and returning to that womb, merging again into their original state. And the recipe speaks of that in very sweet terms. Quote, "Our dissolving water, which is familiar and friendly," unquote. They are ameliorated, softened, and rejoice as they dissolve. That's the idea. Well, that's both true and not true psychologically, because it depends on the level of ego development. We owe Erich Neumann a particular debt in this matter, because he has elaborated in very fine fashion the various aspects of the phenomenon of fusion and merging with the Great Mother in The Origins and History of Consciousness. He makes the point that merging and dissolution in identification with the Great Mother, which is the same as merging in the mercurial fountain, is experienced in different ways depending on the level of development of the ego. For a quite immature ego, The opportunity to rid itself of the painful experience of having a separate existence is blissful. So it will plunge into the maternal fountain, lose its discriminated state, and experience it as a bliss, a kind of ecstasy of oblivion. However, when the ego has developed to a somewhat greater extent, it then becomes aware of what a precious and precarious thing it is to have an autonomous existence. Then the threat of a return to that undifferentiated dissolved state is experienced as a horror of non-being. It is as though the mercurial fountain then takes on the aspect of the jaws of a devouring monster. An ego that has developed sufficiently to value its separate existence will flee from that experience in terror. Newman elaborates this quite beautifully, and that is what it is. That is what is at issue in picture 4. Question: the other way round too? With a mature ego, could you have a momentary blissful state, knowing you could come out of it? The point is that none of us ever reaches that state of total maturity where a little element of bliss doesn't come in. In other words, the psyche is a composite. It's not just one entity, it's a mixture of things. But in talking about the different stages, we have to pretend they're more precisely separated than they are. Question: this is such a happy picture, like a couple in a hot tub, but what about the opposite? You've been talking about the love aspect, but there's also the animosity. That's right. Let's consider these matters now from the standpoint of our 3 modes. First, thinking of the picture as representing a process within an individual, it would mean the plunge has been made into the unconscious. The individual has embraced the object of intense desire, and the process of merging with it has begun. This will generally be experienced in positive terms. The negative aspect doesn't show up in consciousness until a couple of pictures later. We'll get to it, but usually in the individual, this is a pretty happy situation. Question: as I understand it, sometimes it shows itself as love and sometimes as a battle. How does this stage represent itself in a dream, in individual, dual, or collective form, when the situation involves animosity rather than love? The same way, you see, identification with one's intense passion is a dissolution either way. You see, identification with one's intense passion is a dissolution either way. Considering this as a process within a relationship, we could say that the movement of coming together has become irrevocable, and the 2 people have begun a state of merging or mutual identification, which amounts to participation mystique. Another important feature of intense personal relationships is well revealed in picture 4. In this kind of configuration, the innate self that is potentially available to each individual is constellated in the vessel of the relationship. That's illustrated in this picture by the fact that the 6-pointed star descends to the level of the 6-pointed flower pattern and then descends all the way into the bath as the 6-pointed, or as the 6-sided basin. This tells us that the transpersonal factor potentially available to each is being initially constellated in the relationship. It's not yet individualized. Each partner then has the experience of wholeness in the relationship, and that's a very valuable event. It's not just a negative dissolution, you see, because the vessel that is containing the merged identification is a vessel representing the transpersonal entity. And this is a common phenomenon, you know. It can last for a lifetime. How many marriages do we see where the two partners make up two halves of a whole? The wholeness resides in the pair, not in either individual, and it works. And when one dies, the other dies very quickly because the containing vessel has been broken. That would be a picture of this state of affairs. It's as if the process stops at picture 4. The third possibility is that the picture is expressing a process within a collective. Now, in that case, the two antagonistic factions have passed the point of no return, and war has been declared. The meaning of the war, the meaning of the contest itself, will be the same hexagonal bath. It will have the same meaning as the relationship between two. This is how I understand Krishna's response to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is on the verge of a day of battle, but he doesn't want to fight. There are many of his kinsmen arrayed against him. He'd rather give up and says, I don't want to fight against my kinsmen. Krishna, through the personification of his chariot driver, teaches him otherwise. Arjuna finally does battle. It's a difficult doctrine, very difficult, but the gist of it is, you go in there and fight. We have to find a very large standpoint in order to understand that advice, and I think this imagery helps give us the standpoint. As long as the possibility of the Coniunctio resides in the collective situation, then the individual serves the Coniunctio aim. Then the individual serves the Coniunctio aim by playing his or her part in the larger collective drama. That's how I understand it to be for Arjuna. After all, it was about 600 BC when that was written. In that case, then, if destiny has put one in a time and place where the Coniunctio is being manifested within a vessel of war, one must simply submit to it. So far as this image in dreams is concerned, it is very common. All the various images that refer to Solutio will be applicable. My whole chapter on Solutio's symbolism in Anatomy of the Psyche will apply to this picture. Basically, it means getting wet with the unconscious, which has various possibilities. Let me just share with you the other image. Except I had it too large before, so I'm going to cut it way down so that I can stay in the scene. Okay, there it is. Basically, it means getting wet with the unconscious, which has various possibilities. It is potentially auspicious and purifying, promoting renewal and rebirth, but it also has very alarming implications in that one can undergo dissolution and drowning, death and dispersal. It often depends on whether one is looking at the issue in short range or long range terms. In the short run, Solutio images in dreams are very often ominous. Floods, for instance, tidal waves. But over a lengthy dream series, one might look back at such dreams and see that they actually heralded major developmental steps. They were the harbinger of a death and rebirth experience. Of course, this is easy to perceive in retrospect. This is easier to perceive in retrospect than in prospect. Okay, so that is the end of the discussion of picture 4. I'll put it back up on the screen and just take a quick look. All right. Seeing no comments or questions, if you have any, please put them on the chat now. Otherwise, I'll terminate this stream for today. And tomorrow I will come back and do picture 5. Okay, seeing none today, I will proceed and be back to you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.